Hey Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rocky of the Pittsburgh Syndicate. And in this episode, we're going to be breaking down the matchup of Week 2, Browns and Steelers. So to me, it's always important to look at what the reality is of the situation. That Niners game, so not awesome, right? And we look at it and go, there's a lot of reasons we lost, which I broke down in the last video. But sufficiently to say, the coaching scheme lost 100% on both sides of the ball. On offense, we played the exact way the Niners wanted to. We kept everything within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And on defense, we gave everything within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's not good. So when we look at what the Cleveland Browns want to do and what we need to avoid to have that from happening, the first and foremost is we need to stop the run. And with Cam out, it's going to be a very scary and hard proposition. When we look at the film from last week, Benton was by far the best in a not very great showing of shutting down the run last year. And the reason it wasn't a great showing is because we were getting gashed. I mean, there's just no way around that. And you can have one stud in there who can shut down his guy and his gap responsibility. But if the one next to you, Adams, completely implodes, it doesn't really matter. And that is exactly what Cleveland has been watching on tape this whole week going through. We all know that Nick Chubb is one of the absolute best runners in the NFL. And he looked like it last week. Cincinnati's defense is very similar to ours. I would say there's a downgrade in the front seven, but they are not demonstrably worse. They're the second best defense in the division. And they didn't really shut down Chubb that great. So when we look as far as what are the Steelers going to need to do, they need to make sure that they, first and foremost, do not get pushed back on the line of scrimmage as the Niners did to them. The second thing is all three of our linebackers cheated in and got caught, mostly by a linebacker getting blown back into them, and therefore were removed from the play from a physicality standpoint. Structurally, they didn't do anything wrong in terms of their responsibility, but because there was such a failure in front of them, the linebackers got washed out. Now, the reason I bring this up is because there can be a tendency to overreact to that as time goes on. And the way you overreact to that as a linebacker is by playing passive. You wait an extra second until the play develops, and then you jump to where you need to go, and you make your play. The problem is at the NFL, there's not enough time to make that happen. You can do that in college and high school. You cannot do that in the NFL. And it's a big ripple effect that happens from your defensive line getting pushed around. Adams, Leal, Ogunjobi need to step up and be stalwart at the point of attack and anchors. The other concerning thing that we have is more of a trend from last year, since we don't know if it's going to be this year or not. I'm not sure how much credence to give it, but it's still a fact. Teams that played the Niners last year almost always lost. The only two that didn't lose, one of them had a bye. So the following week after playing the Niners. And that's us right here. Now, granted, we're fortunately used to playing a physical game in the Ravens all the time, but even that, you tend to lose the following week regardless of who you play. And that's another thing for concern. With the extra day's rest, that may be nullified. When we look at what our offense is going to have to do against this team, we cannot give up on the run. When we look at that last game, part of the reason we gave up on the run was the scoreboard. Okay, that happens. But the bigger issue is when it's 7-0 in the first quarter, that's not a reason to abandon the run. And you also have to push the ball further downfield. Now, one of the things that I was getting comments about whenever I said in the recap game for the Niners was Kenny Pickett did not look like himself from a physical standpoint. And I wasn't just talking about the fact that his accuracy was not where it was supposed to be, but rather in the fact that in the very few times they showed Kenny's face on the screen, he didn't look right. Like he was sick, having, you know, when you're sick, your face just doesn't look right. And that's what Kenny appeared to be. And that is my hope and takeaway that was the reason for this. Because if we do not push the ball downfield, this offense does not have a chance. Unfortunately, it's part of the history of the Canadian offense is to never push the ball downfield. But if we don't do that, this isn't going to work. during the preseason, they push the ball downfield. And until we get back to that, it really does not matter who we play. It's going to be a problem. Now, specifically in the case of playing Cleveland here this week, we are doing a very good job of nullifying Garrett's effectiveness and giving time in the pocket. So there should be plenty of opportunities to push the ball downfield. Ward is Cleveland's best corner without a doubt, but he's given up roughly 6 inches to George Pickens. And 6 inches plus the higher jump plus the bigger wingspan is going to be all day put the ball to the big man. And in fact, in general, Philadelphia's secondary is on the shorter side. So you bring out some of your other bigger targets, Muth and Washington, for example, you really get some opportunities in the height game. And if you're able to exploit the center of the field on vertical seams from your tight ends, that further opens up your running game. This is a very good chance for the Steelers to get back into balance about what we thought they were 2 weeks ago. Get into a spot where, you know what, we can hit the middle of the field, we can throw it past the sticks, and oh, by the way, Austin didn't look that bad. So if we can keep this going, Cleveland can be had. They can be had dramatically. Their quarterback played a horrendous game last week throwing the ball, but he ran it like Lamar Jackson. And the Steelers obviously know how to cover and prepare for that. And this might be an advantage of playing them in the second week of the season and getting the entire, as soon as he's out of the pocket, we can hit him mentality established throughout the NFL. Because that's one of the great things that Tomlin does and has done. He's going to make sure that we don't get a flag whenever, hopefully, Alexander goes nuts and destroys him. So when we look at this game, the advantages to the Steelers are there. If they are willing to push the ball downfield, the Steelers have a major height advantage in the secondary. And if the Steelers are able to hold the point of attack on defense, they overall should be able to smother the wide receiving core of the Browns. Because this is one of the teams that the Steelers have significantly better corners and safeties than the Browns have at receiver. Yes, Cooper is much better in September than he is throughout the year, but he is also not at a level where he's elite anymore. He puts up numbers because essentially he's the only player there. You think too, any power play in the NHL, it doesn't matter how bad the team is, their leading power play guy is going to get 20 goals. That's what Cooper is to this Cleveland offense. He's just the guy, because he's there, he's going to get it. Shut him down. They really don't have a number 2. Donovan Peoples-Jones is like Linus Sweet. I mean, really, he's the second coming of that. So, overall, I do believe the Steelers are more talented. We do have their defense, or their offensive line and our defensive line did not seem like a mismatch. It seemed like an even battle 2 weeks ago. Following that Niners game, that's a big advantage for the Browns. And if the Steelers' defensive line is able to step up, that will be the determining factor of this game. So tomorrow's episode will be my prediction. Enjoy the Eagles tonight. I do have them as my suicide pick as a side note. So Steelers Nation, here we go, Steelers. Here we go. If you look in the top left, you'll see more footage of our predictions for the Cleveland Browns. The bottom left is local football flavor.